Okay, so welcome to our study group. In the life book today. We're starting here, and we're going to start in element 4, building a healthy mindset. And I love that the opening part of this section is just a really good reminder of what Dr. A's goal for us is. And it just is really simple. My goal for you is to become the dominant force in your life. So to me, the dominant force in my life, like that's a powerful statement. And what is everyone's reaction? What does that mean, or stand out? Like, how does that stand out to you? To become the dominant force in your own life. Like, what is? Yeah, Jess.
I just think it means to take 100% responsibility and accountability for our own lives.
Yeah. Perfect.
And if there's something that we're not loving, it's up to us to change it.
Yeah. Yeah. And he just is really clear. This first page, it's on page 103. I just kind of wanted to read that because I think this sets the whole tone. So if you haven't read it yet, you can follow along. But he says, when I say my goal is for you to become the dominant force in your life, I am being very serious. When you have an internal stability and an external equilibrium, each day of your life will become all out magical. You will process a habit that most have never even thought about. So, that's a pretty awesome, kind of like, not a guarantee, but, something that he's really saying will happen to us if we're able to find that stability and equilibrium. So he goes on the next pages, and it's kind of like a quiz a little bit, or like an evaluation that we can go through. And if you haven't done that, I encourage you to go through it. It just kind of talks about, who's responsible for your well-being, talks about how, we have to be, take responsibility for that. It's not your parents or your spouse or your friends or your genetics or your environment. None of those things can truly affect us, or they shouldn't be affecting us. It should just be us. Like, we're the ones responsible for our current health. So there's some great questions on there, but I didn't want to spend a ton of time on that. I wanted to kind of skip over, because the questions are just really good for evaluating yourself. But on to page 107, where he starts talking about the above the line and below the line. And I think that's such an important thing. And it was actually, I had a really interesting discussion with my kids yesterday about what it meant to be above the line and below the line, because I have 2 kids that naturally find the negative in everything. It's like, there's always something wrong with what we're doing. And they are just negative kids right now. And I don't know if it's because me being home or they're being home with me all the time. But if we're above the line, we're open, curious, and we have a growth mindset. And if we're below the line, then we're closed, defensive, and we always want to be right. And so those are just really good reminders. But he says, if you find yourself mostly below the line and answered anything other than number 4, so if you look over on the other page, if you answered anything than the last ones, you are not taking as much responsibility in your life as you could. So who has examples in their life when they maybe have dropped, and don't share anything super personal, but have you had times in your life when you've dropped below the line? I have, right? We've all had moments where we've dropped. Does anyone want to share sometime maybe when they've had a shift where they've realized they're below the line and then kind of shifted their mindset to get back over the line?
Can I add something in there too?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember, because it's like this happens. They say this happens to everybody all during the day. That our shifts from that book, 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership, they say every 4 seconds our brain just it drifts from place to place. And that we go above and below the line all the time. The big, important thing is to be able to be mindful of where we are above and below the line. That is our power point. Is that awareness to go up and down? Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that. And I love that he says in the bottom little paragraph there, that it's not our fault, right?
Right.
It's not like there's anything wrong with us if we drop below the line, or there's nothing, it's not our fault. But even though it might not be our fault, we have to take accountability for it, and we have to make the changes to move back up. So if you flip over, he talks about, a lot of these above the line and below the line, mentalities. And he gives us and introduces us to the victim triangle, or to the drama triangle. And I know, Vicki, that's kind of something you love to talk about. The drama triangle. It's like close to your heart.
One of my big ones. Yeah.
I think that just like, and if you can't see it, if you don't have your book, this is kind of, let's see if you can see it on mine. What he's talking about. And,
Cammie, can I interject here for a second?
Please do. Yeah.
I'm just thinking, looking at going through this, if we're above the line, typically we're going to be happy. Mm-hmm. And don't we all want happiness? And so it's interesting because, yes, it's natural for us to go to go below the line, but when we go above the line, when we're above the line and we're thinking about these things and we're being open and curious, it helps to just like I feel the shift in the happiness for myself. That's kind of where mine is, even though it's so natural for me to just go below the line and to be sad. And but as soon as I shift, I go, that's where like those feelings of gratitude come in, and things that help me to feel happy again. And so I'm like, why do I do that to myself? Because it's never a happy place to be. Below the line is really not, I don't think there's happiness there. I think people, it's like misery loves company. And so you want everybody to go there because, you have company down there maybe, but it doesn't bring happiness. I just thought I'd throw that in there.
And I want to share kind of where I'm at. So
it's happiness.
Oh, I don't know what that was. So I had an experience just this morning with this, because I have had a really interesting month, the last month. And for those that don't know, I had some surgery done that was not necessarily a necessity, but something that was really hard on me emotionally. So 6.5 years ago, it was right after I'd become a health coach, 6 years ago, they found a really large lump in my right breast. And I was told that they were concerned it was cancer. And this was 6 years ago. So I was like in my mid-20s. And they removed it, but in the process removed like half of my right breast, which as someone in your mid-20s, it was like emotionally hard for me. So the insurance approved me to have that rebuilt. And so I had breast reconstruction on May 31st. And I didn't think it would be hard, but the recovery has been really, really hard. And in the same place, I haven't been able to do the things I'm used to doing. So I've gained 10 pounds this month. Woo! It's just like the normal, I couldn't do anything. I was literally stuck on a couch for 2.5, 3 weeks. I still can't lift anything or do anything because it was much more extensive. So I woke up this morning, and it's July 1st, and I made myself a goal that no matter what, on July 1st, I was going to take back control of my health. And I could sit here and blame all of these reasons for why I had, gained some weight, why I had, struggled, but I had to take accountability. So I stepped on the scale, I faced my reality, and you know what? I have, a program, and I'm so grateful. It's just like you said, Karen, it makes you so happy you are above the line, because no, it's not a great place for me to be in with my health, but I know how to fix it. And I know what's next. And so I started my day with my, healthy fueling, my shake, and I, already have drank 30 ounces of water, and I'm so grateful. But if I didn't have that mindset, then this could be a real struggle. And I think a lot of people really struggle with the same kind of thing. So there's my full disclosure moment, is that I am on day 1 of 5 and 1, and my goal is by convention to be close to down 8 pounds. And I am grateful because I've learned this above the line. I could wake up this morning with a positive attitude about it rather than, oh no, like I have to go on a diet again today kind of mentality. So does anyone else have anything that they could share? Yes, Vicki.
With my husband being away, you know, with him living in Hawaii and me being here, I've had those major ups and downs. Last Sunday was a major kind of below the line, and I needed some help, and the support came. You know, I was glad that I've got a healthy community, you know, to help me to be able to lift that. And I think that's one of the things that we get to be, you know, not the heroes, but that coach, you know, to help people move above the line. And I figured out, and it was because of this that it finally dawned on me, you know, this isn't black and white with my husband gone. He isn't gone. This is it's a new experience. It's an obstacle I haven't had to tackle before. I haven't had to be alone. I mean, I got married when I was 19 out of high school, you know. I haven't had that experience before. This is enlightening, you know, but it did take a mind shift. And this is basically what helped, is being able to have had this training before and understanding that, you know, nobody's happy in victim mode. You know, what do I get to do with this? Mm-hmm. You know, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for this whole kind of training, because I am not, I'm not a victim. I am empowered, and it's because of this.
And I love that you use the word empowered, because and I know I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the drama triangle because we've all seen that in other trainings. Yeah. But the one that I love and want to talk about is on the next page. It's on 110, and it's the empowerment triangle.
Yes.
And it is so, so awesome. It's just a way for us to, it just says, I'll read it. It says, how do we make this work for you on a practical basis and give you the means of installing this new way of responding to your world? You need to be the own chief advocate on your journey and have the ability to minimize anything or anybody throwing you off track. If you're feeling overwhelmed by these new concepts and the idea that you can be in control of your destiny, remember that I am right here with you on this journey. We'll take this process like we do all the habits of health you acquire in baby steps, one micro habit at a time. So I just love this empowerment triangle, because he talks about that I'm in charge of what happens. So instead of being the victim, and on the other page we have the victim, the villain, and the hero, we now have the creator, the coach, and the challenger. And so those roles and titles shift, and we're able to take more accountability. And I love that it says that I'm creating my own story. I help others get better. I empower others to be successful. Obstacles help me get better. I am open and curious to learn, and I am in charge of what happens. So it shifts everything from that drama to now this empowerment of, we can do this, but we have to have this is the process that we need in place. So what is everyone's thoughts on that? Anyone have any thoughts on the empowerment triangle?
I like how it talks about that. Just the next paragraph down, it's like taking a regular trip to the mental gymnasium. So I think sometimes when we learn something, we think, oh my gosh, we have to do it right this second. And, you know, it's no different than going to work out. When you first, in fact, speaking of surgeries, I haven't been able to work out for over 2 months now because of my foot surgery. So I was thinking of heading to the gym this morning and I'm dreading it a little bit because it's been 2 months. But it's okay, because I'm going to take it one step at a time and just see what I can do. And that's really what this is saying, is just one thing at a time, and just make one small change, and then make another one, and make another one, and then and eventually you'll get there.
Yeah, I love that. Anyone else have any thoughts about the empowerment triangle? No? Okay, we'll move on just a little bit. So there's so much to cover. I'm kind of, like, without Liz here, I don't know how we'd squeeze all of her stuff into. Because on the next page, it really talks about that gap between stimulus and response. And I think that as we teach our clients about Stop, Challenge, Choose, it's so important that we're using it in our lives as well as coaches, because we can, you know, between that stimulus and response, we can choose to be above the line or below the line with our thinking when something comes our way. So, you know, an example, when I stepped on the scale this morning to face my reality, I had that time to, you know, between the stimulus and response, to like feel bad for myself or to have negative thoughts, or I could choose to plug my number in, record my weight, and start my journey with a positive attitude. You can make that choice. And I think that's really important. He talks about our lower brains, and then he goes into Stop, Challenge, Choose, and the importance of it. And we all kind of know that, so I don't want to spend a ton of time on it. And then the second section, let's see if I'm almost there. There's some more above the line and below the line. Oh, hold on. The one thing I wanted to make sure we talk about is on page 122. And it's, what does he call it? The loop. So the habit loop. And it's where something happens, and when we aren't stopped, like when we don't use Stop, Challenge, and Choose, we go below the line. We drift down below the line into the drama triangle, and then it makes it more difficult to recover. So that loop is really long and big. But if we can be faced with something that happens to us, stop, challenge, and choose, then it shortens up that shift to where we can get back to our presence a little bit faster. Does that make sense? So I've heard Amber and Jared talk about this with the client. If they, you know, make a choice that's off of program or, you know, away from their goals, that we want to shorten up that loop, shorten up the slip cycle. And I think I like that he talks about it, you know, with us and in the drama triangle as well. Does anyone have any experiences or things they want to share about that?
I don't have anything to share, but actually I remember a live that you did, Cami, about the slip cycle.
Oh yeah.
And I'm wondering if you can can you briefly go over that here? Yeah. I loved it so much.
So the slip cycle is something that I've taught a lot of my clients about, because so often our clients get in this mentality where, like I've heard Jared use the example of a donut. He had a client that had donuts in the office, and she ate like 2 or 3 of them because they were there and no one was around her. And he said, well, what would you have done before the program? And she said, well, I would have eaten the whole box. Like, you know, my slip cycle would have been bigger. So I was talking to a client, and she was just really, really struggling staying on program. And she had really awful self-control. She was really struggling with that exact thing, where she would eat one thing and then convince herself that my whole day's shot. And so she would spend the rest of her day on this giant slip cycle. And then some days it would take her 3 or 4 days to get herself back motivated to be focused on her goals again. And so we just talked about shortening that up. So if you make a decision and it takes you down the slip cycle, we want to shorten it up, so meaning that the very next choice is moving you back up in the direction of your goals, whatever that is. And I don't remember exactly what I shared on the live, but that was the idea of it, is that it's okay to make the choice. You made the choice, but now make sure that we're shortening it up. So instead of taking 4 or 5 days to get back on program, it's 2 to 3 hours for your next feeling to get you back on program or back on, like, towards your goals. Does that help, Karen?
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So the next element, and I don't know how much time we had. We started a little bit late, so maybe another 5 minutes. Does that sound good? Okay. So element 5 is optimizing our surroundings And he says, just in the little summary on 124, look at your surroundings and see how we can recruit the people, modify the places, and change the things that touch your world. And has anyone listened to or read Doug Wood's book? Okay, Vicki, he talks about this a lot, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is big.
He's huge on this, and he talks about all the time how they had to, for a time, remove certain people or things from their life to create room for better things. And how we have to look at our surroundings, and sometimes it's family, and sometimes it's friends, and sometimes it's, other things that are taking us away from our goal, and that we have to create a microenvironment of healthy relationships and health around us in order to help us be successful. So if we get into that, he talks about relationships and how we have to optimize those relationships. And we want to, be around people that are above the line thinkers, because the more we're around those people, the more we're going to be that way.
Yeah.
I don't have a ton of time, so I'll kind of go through this one a little bit quick.
Can I share one idea here?
Please do.
One of the things that I have struggled with since Joe's been gone, and I did really well for a while just not having TV, because I would turn on the TV and it was like I'd just get sucked into it, like the gremlin thing. Mm-hmm. And so I gave my remote to one of my good friends here. And it's been wonderful. I feel that pull, like, oh, I could just go sit and watch TV for a minute, but I don't have the remote, and it's gone. and I like it. So it's been like a safety thing for me. So that's
that's perfect. And what's one of the first things we teach our clients is to remove any of their junk food or temptations from their pantry, right? We teach them to clean out that stuff.
Yeah.
That's perfect. And he talks a lot about different parts of it. He talks about improving relationships, your social consciousness. He helps you diffuse the drama in a situation. So on page 136, some questions that you can ask. What is happening? What did I want to have happen? So maybe if something didn't go your way, what did I really want? What's missing? And then what's next? So you have like a really specific path to follow. The social consciousness is interesting. He says, now that you have started to self-regulate and to consider how you will respond when you are angry, sad, or joyful, you are in a position to learn how to be aware of other people's emotions and what's going on inside of them. So really like learning how our minds respond in certain ways, evaluating that, becoming totally aware of it, and then figuring out a plan to fix it. But that will help us as well to learn how to be aware of other people's emotions. So when we're talking to our clients or to our family members, that we can help them. He talks about improving your relationships, how sometimes relationships can sabotage us. If you have negative people around you all the time, it can sabotage your mindset. It can, we can improve those interactions and change them, but it can be sabotaging for us. And then he talks about learning new habits and how we have to learn new habits, and there's 4 stages of learning a new habit. And that's a really good section. If you haven't looked through that yet, the 4 stages are the unconscious and incompetent, the conscious incompetent, the conscious competent, and the unconscious competent. So he talks about where we fall in that. Anyone have anything to add for these? I hate that we have to go so fast on this. There's so much important things that we can go, so many important things.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, just a side note here, I'm wondering if we shouldn't slow this down a little bit and take something like, because I know we've been like doing 2, for example, we were supposed to do 4 and 5. If we brought this down and said, let's just work on 1 a week.
Yeah.
That would give us more time even when we're discussing it.
Yeah, and I think too,
just a thought.
Even with like having 2, we were supposed to have 2 sections in here too.
Mm-hmm.
That's technically 4.
Yeah. So
I
it just
think,
creates a hard,
And
The idea-
honestly, it's hard for me to get that all in 1 week anyway,
yeah.
to read it all. So
When we started, the idea was to, because Dr. A wanted us to be halfway through the book. And so just that idea of helping each other be able to get through that book, not even halfway, but it would have been about a third of a way. So I am just fine with going back and doing things more simply. It was just, that was the original idea, was that none of us were getting through this, to be ready for convention. And but I'm with you. I would love just to go back and even start over and just like this chapter and this chapter, and then do that one too.
Well,
So,
and even if we just plan, like maybe from next week, have someone else, because I haven't even touched on section 5 yet.
yeah,
Like,
it's so good.
who's presenting to be able to do section 5, and then, I mean, we need to go over what Liz is prepared anyways, because I know she was prepared to teach on the books. So, yeah, I think, and it's been a half hour, so our prime time's probably up. But I agree. I think we need a little bit more time. So is anyone else have anything they want to talk about before we end with the drama triangle, with above the line, below the line, anything like that?
Yeah, I just wanted to share for a second real quick that I'm planning on teaching my students at school about living above the line and below the line to help us in my classroom. So I'm kind of excited to like show some of the pictures in the book and on a PowerPoint and kind of help them learn this topic. So I'm kind of excited.
That's awesome.
Huge. It's huge.
Yep, and I think the more that we can do exactly that, the more we can teach, just like, us as coaches, the more we teach, the more proficient we are with our own health. So same thing.
Yeah.
That's, I took the opportunity to talk to my kids about it because their attitude was driving me crazy. Like, the more we teach other people, the better it's going to help us, or the more it's going to help us become better at it. So I love that. Okay,
so what is that, what we're planning is to go over the rest of what we didn't cover today next week, or are we going to move forward?
Yeah, I think so. I think we.
I put that too.
Yeah, I can do it again, or if Liz wants to, whatever, or if someone else is, or who's on the schedule for next week, Vicki?
Nobody, no one yet. So yes, this is perfect. This is a good step.
Okay, so why don't I just take the section we didn't get to next Monday, and I'll just let Liz know that we're doing it again.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.